Hi booktube, Aaron here. I hope you're doing okay. Today I'm going to be doing the Memento Mori tag. It was created by David from Polyglot Reading. It's a great channel and I discovered it through this tag. So yeah, I'm glad he made it and I'm looking forward to discovering more of his channel. And I've seen quite a few people do this tag and it's just been really interesting to hear the varied responses to the prompts. So I don't think I've been tagged, but I've just been thinking about it a lot, and so I quite like to give it a go. Um, and I think just the subject of death and mortality is something I find really interesting, and I think it is part of the reason why I read, and part of the reason I have an interest in literature, and particularly in some of the older literature that I read. And it's also probably this kind of morbid streak that I have. It's probably why this painting by John Everett Millay called The Veil of Rest. I think it's part of a diptych. So there's another painting that goes with it of people in the prime of life. But then this picture is my my cover photo for my channel, um, and I just really quite like it. As I said, I think I have a bit of a morbid streak. Quite like the fact that this nun here has a skull on the rosary. I don't think you can quite see it, but just things like that I find really interesting. And I suppose thinking about these things, it's a kind of a reset and it helps you evaluate things. So let's get into the actual prompts. So the first prompt is, how many books will you be able to read before you die, considering your age and statistical life expectancy? Um, with just those two things considered, I don't know, maybe 6 to 7 thousand books. It's quite hard to estimate because over the last 5, 6, 7 years, my reading, the amount I'm reading in a year has been growing exponentially. So, um, it might be a lot more than that. But that's also not really accounting for changes in lifestyle. I'm relatively young, so it's very probable that my lifestyle might change a fair bit. Um, I'm expecting a baby at the moment. It's obviously not inside me, but yeah, that's kind of imminent, and so there are going to be changes to my reading life affected by that, and probably by all sorts of other things, possible career changes and family obligations and things. So I have no idea, but if it's just my age and my statistical life expectancy, maybe 6 to 7 thousand, maybe 10,000. I don't know. Number two, how does this number affect your choice of books? Um, I don't really think that this number is very present in my mind. I'd never calculated it or attempted to calculate it before doing this prompt. Um, so yeah, it's not really something that affects my choice of books. I think I'm thinking about the individual books and the things that arouse my curiosity, and generally it is on a book by book basis and an author by author basis. So yeah, it's not something I worry about too much. Number three, and this is one of the prompts that I find really interesting. What will happen to your book collection once you die? Um, I think I'll probably take a kind of take what you want policy. I don't want to be too precious about it, really. Um, I'd hope that there'd be certain books that the people I leave behind will maybe have memories attached to certain books, that they might see that they meant a lot to me, and they might want to keep certain books. But really, I was thinking that there's someone I know, and when his mother died, he invited me and Jasmine to uh, go over, and once he'd got rid of all the sentimental things, he sort of gave us free reign, and just let us take anything that would be useful to us. And yeah, it was really useful. We just moved house and needed quite a few things. So he wasn't sentimental about these things, and I take a very similar approach to my books. Once my family and friends, whoever's left behind, once they've taken what means a lot to them, I'll be happy for them to invite anyone they want to take anything they'd find interesting, and I wouldn't want people to have um, I wouldn't want them to feel any obligation to keep those books just because they used to be mine. Once they're if they're not actually interested in them, or there's no sentimental attachment, then just get rid of them. So I think that's the kind of that's the approach I'll have, I think. Number 4, is there a book that helps you cope with the disturbing facts of a limited lifespan? And again, I was saying that this kind of morbid streak is sort of part of what I find. It's yeah, death is part of what I find interesting in literature. But I don't think I think of it in this kind of prescriptive way, I suppose. I don't see that there is, we have the problem that we're going to die, and that I have to think of literature to be a kind of balm to that, although, in many ways it is. But yeah, I'm not necessarily thinking of my reading in that way. There are certainly books that I've read and go back to quite a lot um, that can be comforting when it comes to death, and also just dealing with life as well. It's the other side of the coin. David, in the original video, he brought up certain parts of the Bible. I think he brought up like the Proverbs and Ecclesiastes, Sermon on the Mount, and things like that. I think the Psalms would be, probably a go-to book if I was on my deathbed. But also, I think Rilke, a poet I really like. I really love his Duino elegies, which I think are a little more existential and about the problem of living and existing. But yeah, it still feels very comforting to read. I suppose his sonnets to Orpheus, I'm rereading this at the moment, and I suppose that's delving a little more into death and impermanence. But yeah, I was thinking just about other writers that write about death, and I really appreciate the way that they write about death. When I was in school and I had to study certain poets, a lot of the poets that stood out to me were kind of obsessed about death, and I quite liked the fact that they were obsessed about death. I mean, there's Emily Dickinson, and her poem, I heard a fly buzz when I died. Oh no, I've probably misquoted it now. No, I heard a fly buzz when I died. And poems like that, which are so weird, but yeah, I just love the way she writes about death. Same goes for Christina Rossetti as well. Um, Again, has a very interesting approach on death, I think. This is all I own of Rossetti's poetry. I'd like to get some more at some point. That's a bit of a tangent. Number 5. Which book on this topic do you consider the most witty or entertaining? So I suppose that's sort of coming out of where I went with the last prompt. And I think for this one, I'd be going with a book that recently I've really found to be one of my favourite books, and that's The Magic Mountain by Thomas Mann. And I think it's just because the the attitudes that the characters have to death changes quite a lot as the book goes on. There are long stretches where the characters, and I suppose you as a reader as well, you're feeling quite desensitized to death, and then suddenly a character will die, and you just remember just how close it is, and the fact that it has been lingering in the corners for so long. It's set in a tuberculosis hospital, so that there is always this, sort of, you're being constantly reminded of mortality and illness and death. And there's just yes, so many ways that it's explored. There are jokes about death. It's sort of just thrown around in a kind of silly way. Then there are some very poignant moments as well. There's a one of the things I find really interesting is there's a kind of love interest, there's a romance in here, um, and when the main character, he keeps a memento when this person that he's infatuated with goes away. He doesn't take he doesn't take a portrait or a photograph, but he takes an X-ray plate of her chest, which could be kind of erotic, I suppose, but it's also it's the X-ray of her lungs and of the tuberculosis of the disease that's probably going to kill her. And so yeah, there's that very complicated and really quite fascinating morbid streak in the book that I really quite like. I'm saying morbid streak quite a lot. It sounds like it could be a flavour of ice cream. Number 6. Do you have a specific non-fiction book on the topic of death that you'd like to recommend? Nope. I don't think I've actually read a non-fiction book about death, or at least that's primarily about death. Number 7. Humour can be helpful to confront death. Do you have a favourite witty quote on the topic? I think one of my favourites, it's the Roman Emperor Vespasian. I hope I'm saying his name right. He said, "I think I'm becoming a god." Yeah, I find that quite funny. Number 8, then, the last prompt. And I love this prompt because it's just such a great... it's the tag asking you about the tag. It's just wonderfully reflective. Does this tag make you feel uneasy, or are you quite relaxed about this topic? And yeah, it doesn't really make me feel that uneasy. I think talking about death, I find it strangely relaxing. And as I said at the beginning, it's a great way to reset and to reprioritize things potentially. It would be a bit inconvenient if I if I died right now, but yeah, I'm not particularly troubled by it, and I find it really valuable to think about things like this. And that's the end of the tag. So I'll go ahead and I'll prompt a few people who I think will have some fairly different responses to these prompts. So I'll tag Dia from Novel Idea. I'll tag Aaron from Aaron Read a Book, or Aaron Read a Book. Aaron Read a Book, sorry. I said his name my way, not his way. And Gareth from Books, Songs and Other Magic. So I think the three of them will have some fairly different responses and approaches to this tag. So I'll leave it there. I hope that was interesting. I definitely found it valuable to think about this stuff. But until next time, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.